When President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the end of level 5 of the lockdown, many cooped-up South Africans took to the streets and the promenades in their droves, mainly during the exercise hours, but that was just the beginning. It might take more than that to get the economy going. How much of an appetite do we actually have, well, for adventure after living under all of these restrictions? The futurist Graeme Cordington has some ideas about the impact of all of that. Graeme, good evening to you. I mean, we don't know what government's going to do over the next few days or weeks. If we move to lockdown level 3 or lockdown level 2, do you think everyone's going to just run out of their houses? Are they all going to go back onto the promenade and Sea Point in Cape Town?
Well, I mean, that is what happened the last time we moved levels down to level 4, of course, and we saw that rush the following day. And I suppose that's understandable from a human nature perspective. And our team has been watching what is happening all around the world in other countries. And right now that gives us a little glimpse into what might happen here in South Africa. And that's precisely actually what has happened in most other countries. The first day or two after a lockdown level is eased, everybody, I think, just has that little burst of needing to get out of whatever restrictions they've been in, and they head out to the shops, they head out to the parks and the beaches and so on. And of course, what often happens after that, and we've seen this in countries around the world, is that you have spikes in infection. So I think that's one thing that the government is going to be talking to us very sternly about, as they have been, to just remind us that moving levels of lockdown is not because we've actually dealt with the disease already, but just because we're trying to get some of the economy going. And I think, Stephen, this is what we're seeing elsewhere in the world. We know that we haven't dealt with the disease yet. We have to get some of the economy going. And the debate really isn't between lives and livelihoods. That's what some people are putting the debate up as. But it's really between confidence and fear and recklessness on the other side. We need to make sure that when the government eases regulations, that consumers and people are confident. Give you an example, Stephen. Just this last week, South Korea phased open their schools in almost exactly the same way that South Africa is suggesting we should do. And in 2 of the cities in South Korea, the schools were closed on the same day that they were opened, because as students began to phase back in, they did the temperature checks, they did some of the tests, and they found that the schools had COVID instances in teachers and pupils, and so they closed the schools again. And what you don't want as we move from one level to the other is you don't want that confidence of people going to a restaurant or getting on an aeroplane or sending their children to school. You don't want that confidence to be hit. So there are 5 things that countries are doing around the world, and I think these are going to be the 5 keys here for us in South Africa. Employees need to feel safe to return to work, and their employers need to make sure that there is a sense of safety with all of the protections, a reduction of the numbers of people going to work. Then they need to get to work safely, which means if they're using public transport, we need to make that physically distanced. Those who can continue to work from home need to be able to do so and should probably be encouraged to do so. Customers need to have a sense of safety when they come to your premises. And finally, society needs to feel that there is some movement towards an end goal. And when you can get all of those things right, only then will the economy begin to open. It's not just about regulation, it's about customer confidence and market confidence as well.
Graeme, there's a really interesting sort of nuance here, and Jonathan Shapiro, the cartoonist Shapiro, was making the point earlier today on Newzroom Afrika that in all other countries, as they've reduced their lockdowns and removed their restrictions, they've done that after the peak. We're doing it before our predicted peak. That actually makes it a lot harder to give anyone confidence to leave their home.
Well, Stephen, this is exactly the point I'm making. I think we realize that we kind of have no choice. We do have to get parts of the economy going. But this is not a government regulation issue at the moment. A lot of people are shouting at the government to reduce the regulations. The government can open every restaurant they like tomorrow. A lot of people are going to stay away from the restaurants, rightly so, in my opinion, because, as you say, we're still moving up towards the peak. So we have to realize this is a lot less about government regulations and a lot more about us. I still see people on the streets not wearing masks. And I'm one of those people. I confront them and I ask them to please wear a mask. If we don't all wear masks, if we don't all physically distance ourselves, if we don't all take this seriously, if we do move to level 3 and the promenade at Sea Point is flooded again, that's not the government's regulations, that's on us. And unless we all, each one of us individually, take it seriously, the government is going to have no choice but to go back up the levels and lock us down again. So really, I think at the moment it's not government regulations, it's our behavior and our response that's going to bring the confidence back to the economy and our markets.
Graeme Cordington, as always, thank you very much indeed, the futurist on The Pulse tonight.